Okay. This week, there's only one assignment that's not due until a week from today. That's so you can prepare for the midterm. Midterm should be in the testing center Friday. I'll let you know Wednesday whether that's really going to happen or not. It might be as late as Monday, but it'll be in there at least all next week. Okay, that's like Monday through Saturday. Now, Saturday hours are just in the morning. You need to check the hours at the testing center to make sure you go in there and have enough time, because that's where the test is going to be. Okay. No outside calculators. They'll give you a Casio FX. Geez, I forget the name. 20, I think. Okay. Doesn't sound right, but anyhow, it's just very basic calculator. It won't do any graphing. It'll do arithmetic. You can take square roots. You can do probably even sines and cosines, though that's not relevant to this course. It has limited memory. I will give you sample problems by the end of the week, hopefully by Wednesday. Can't guarantee by Wednesday, but I'll at least email them by the end of the week. But I'm going to spend most of the time today and next time reviewing. Okay, so the last topic you're going to be responsible for in the test is solving simultaneous equations. And this is the last method that I've chosen to use. You've seen graphing, you've seen elimination, and there's substitution. And I saw some people using elimination on this one, at least starting to, and it looked right. It looked like it was going to work. But I'm going to solve these by substitution. We've already done plenty of examples by elimination. The other thing I'll say is you need to review, depending on how much you remember. And a good way to review is to go back and rework all the quizzes, meaning you go to the website, go to the assignments page, click on the video, and the first thing you're going to see is the quiz. And work that before you look at the solution. See if you're working it right, then look at the solution and take careful notes if you aren't. Good place to start. And then a place to follow up is to go into Open Math, into the half credit page, or you can do, I think you can do most of these assignments for practice. Okay, so you can probably go into the regular site and just work the homework again for practice. See what you've learned, see what comes together for you. Spend some time on this. Some are going to need to spend more time than others, but spend whatever time it takes. Okay, now everybody did more or less okay. Everybody knew what to do with this problem. Not everybody got to this problem, and not everybody even completed this problem, but everybody knew what to do on the first step. And once you got the first step, you're probably in good shape. So let's do this problem. Here we got 4x minus 3y equals 7. And we've got y equals negative 2x plus 6. Well, what we do is we take this expression, which is equal to y, and we plug it in for y here. And that gives us the equation 4x minus 3 times a quantity negative 2x plus 6 equals 7. Now, most of the work I saw made a mistake multiplying through here. I don't recommend that you just write down 6x minus 18, which is what it is. If you've ever made a mistake doing this, you want to write out the full distributive law. That means 4x minus 3 times negative 2x minus 3 times 6. Okay, minus 3 times this and minus 3 times this. If you skip that step and make a mistake, I'm going to count it pretty heavily as an error. Okay, now if you get the rest of the solution and then do the substitution, see that it didn't work. Hopefully also do a graph and see that the point you get for the intersection doesn't have much to do with the solution you got. Then you might still get 7 points out of 10, but it's going to cost you at least 3 points out of 10 to do that. And if you don't get the rest of the solution, I'm going to be less forgiving. It'll probably count half of the problem. Does that make sense? Think that's fair? I don't. Whether you think it's fair or not, that's what I'm going to do. Everybody's nodding yes because you want to make me happy. Okay. It's fair because I said that's what's going to happen, right? You don't want to make that mistake, and I really strongly recommend that you follow my advice and write this step out so you don't mess it up. Now watch me mess it up, okay? Okay, so we have 4x, and what's a negative times a negative? It's positive. 3 times 2 is 6, it's going to be plus 6x. Now we got a negative times a positive, that's going to give us a negative. Okay? Now everybody knows that 4x plus 6x is 10x. Although if you wrote this down as negative 6x, you see the negative signs, you think it ought to be negative. Really easy to do that, which is why I say write out this step. But if you did put a negative there, you would have gotten a negative 2x. You had gotten the wrong solution. But then most people that got a wrong solution on the first try followed it up with a lot of the right steps. Not that that's going to help. But anyhow, 4x and 6x is 10x, negative 18 is negative 18, 7 is 7. Then if you like, you write plus 18 equals plus 18. And then you write 10x minus 18 plus 18 equals 25. Now, minus 18 plus 18 is 0. If you made any mistake at this point doing all this, you really want to write out this step. If this is minus 18 and minus 18, it doesn't equal 0. It equals negative 36. If it's plus 18 and plus 18, it doesn't equal 0, it's plus 36. You got to make sure that this and this add up to 0 before you write out 10x equals 25. So 10x over 10 equals 25 over 10, and x equals 25 tenths. And you have to know how to reduce fractions. You might have to go back and review the fraction because I'm not going to go through that right now. I'm probably not even going to review fractions much. But that equals 5 halves. You divide 25 by 5, you divide 10 by 5. You can do prime factorization, review how to do that. Okay, now we substitute this into one of the equations. Okay, so we've got x equals 5 halves. And we'll come up here and we're going to space out of here, come around here, and plug it in for x. And that's going to give us the equation. Four times 5 halves minus 3y equals 7. 4 times 5 halves is 20 halves. And we've got the 3 dots there. Do all your steps, write out everything that I've written out here. If you've made any mistake on this, be in the habit of doing that. You're going to have time on the test to write out every step. It doesn't take long to write it out. And it saves you time because you're more likely to get the right solution so that when you come back here and check your solution. It works and you don't have to fix anything. Okay. So now check. We can already check that in the first equation. If we say y equals 1 and plug it back in here, we get 10 minus 3 equals 7. Okay, so this one is pretty much checked. You still want to go back and do it, but you're going to pretty much get what we got here. So I was going to say, if we plug that into the first equation, it comes out okay. Plug into y equals negative 2x. I don't know why I wrote 2 over x. You see how easy it is to write what you don't intend to write. Y equals negative 2 and actually negative 2x plus 6. Plugging in y equals 1, we get 1 equals negative 2 times 5 halves plus 6. 1 equals negative 2 times 5 halves. It's 2 over 1 times 5 over 2. 2 is a factor of the denominator, 2 is a factor of the numerator. Negative sign remains. We get negative 5 plus 6. 1 equals 1, and it checks. Okay. Now, how you go about these steps is up to you. When you got negative 2 times 5 halves plus 6, you could have multiplied both sides by 2. And you'd have gotten a solution almost as quickly. And it would have been a good solution. Okay, now, as I've said, everybody showed me that they know how to do this first step. Not everybody got to the second step. Okay, but if you did, I think you got it right. Okay, the second problem. Two x plus 5y plus 8 equals 0, and then 3x well, the first equation, either for x or for y. You can pick either. Now, everybody's used to solving for y, and that's just fine. Sometimes it'd be easier to solve for x. So just to illustrate that it works, I'm going to solve for x. So choosing to solve for x. Okay, well, we have 2x plus 5y plus 8 equals 0. Well, we subtract 5y and subtract 8. Okay, so that when we add 5y to negative 5y, we get 0. When we do 8 minus 8, we get 0. Over here, we get negative 5y plus 8. Here we get 2x. So it's 2x plus 0 equals negative 5y plus 8, or 2x equals negative 5y plus 8. And then we divide both sides by 2. Make sure that you divide the entire expression over here by 2. And make sure you understand that first place 2 over 2 gives you 1. Negative 5y is divided by 2 and 8 is divided by 2. Well, that gives you negative 5 halves y plus 8 halves. Don't neglect to write out this step. Often people will divide the 2 into one of the terms, but not the other. Make sure you're dividing the 2 into both terms. And then you simplify that, you get x equals negative 5 halves y plus 4. Okay? So all I've done is I've solved the first problem, first equation for x using standard steps. Now there are other alternatives. You'd like to see the number here over on the other side. You can change this to 2x plus 5y equals negative 8, 3x plus 4y equals 7, right? You can easily do that. And then proceed if you're more comfortable with that. And then you wouldn't have to subtract 2 terms from both sides. You'd actually be doing it in 2 steps. But I choose to do it like this just to show you that this is possible. And it's just using the same rules that we've used all along. We just have to subtract both terms. All right, well, in any case, we take this and we plug it not in to the other equation, not the same one, for x. Looks like I need to get a little more chalk out of that holder. Okay, so that gives us 3 times negative 5 halves y plus 4. Okay, do you see the mistake I made? I got negative 5y minus 8, and I've got negative 5y plus 8 here. Now, I don't have to erase the whole thing. I just go down here, and all these pluses become minuses. And this plus will become a minus. And now it's more likely to check out because it certainly wasn't going to before. Okay? Now, I really made that mistake because I was busy thinking about what I was going to explain, and I wasn't being real careful about my signs. I wasn't looking at it term by term. So take a lesson and don't do what I did. Check out every term, okay? Because I see a lot of mistakes being made that way. Probably you're just imitating what you see me do. Okay, but still, it's up to you to get it right. Okay, so we put it in here. There's our 3x, there's our x. So there's our new expression for 3x. Then we got plus 4y minus 7. Minus 7 equals 0. Well, then I have to use a distributive law, and I want to multiply that all out. 3 times negative 5 halves y plus 3 times negative 4 plus 4y minus 7 equals 0. 3 times negative 5 halves y, there it is. We can double check it. If our check doesn't work and we think this is right, we go back and check this out, and it's very easy to check it out if we see everything written out clearly. Make sure this is here and this is here with a minus sign in each case, and then it's each one times 3. Okay? Look at those details. We get negative 15 halves y minus 12 plus 4y minus 7 equals 0. Now, avoid the danger of working with fractions when you can avoid it. multiply both sides by 2. And make sure we've got all our y's written down, because it's real easy to leave off a y or leave off an x. Okay, so we get 2 times negative 15 halves y plus 2 times negative 12 plus 2 times 4y plus 2 times negative 7 equals 0. Double check, make sure everything's there. Okay. Then we write this as 2 over 1, because now we can see I multiply the 1 by the 2 and the 2 by the negative 15, I'll get negative 30 over 2. Main thing is 2 is a factor of the denominator, it's a factor of the numerator. So now I can write this as negative 15y minus 24 plus 8y minus 14 equals 0. I simplify, negative 15y plus 8y is negative 7y. This is minus 38 equals 0. I'm not going to belabor the remaining points. I'm going to end up with y equals negative 38 over 7. And then we can plug this back into the first equation. Solve for x. You're going to get 5 times negative 38/7 here, meaning you're going to have to multiply both sides by 7. And then you're going to get an equation that has kind of big numbers in it. Try to use a calculator for some of it. Although if you can do the arithmetic on paper, I'd recommend it. But you get a solution for x, then you plug everything in and you deal with the fractions. I'm not going to go through all that now, because we need to review. Okay, so as I've just said, I'm going to review, and I'm going to kind of go backwards, because the more difficult stuff has for the most part been more recent, and you might still need a little bit to go on. Okay, so the first thing I want to review is linear equations and linear functions. Now, before I do that, I want to take another look here to make sure I'm not reviewing something I've done in another class, but not in this one, because stuff all runs together. Okay, I was 99.9% sure what I was doing, and I just wanted to double check. Never know from one moment to the next. Okay, so what we're talking about is how to find the equation of a line. Okay, first, given a point and a slope, use the form y equals mx plus b. That's the slope-intercept form, and I'll even write that as a note, although you should know that very well. Now I'll mention, if the point you're given happens to be the y-intercept, then you know what B is. Because B is the slope of the y-intercept. And you know what M is, you know what the slope is, so it's trivial to find the equation if you're already told that the slope is this and the y-intercept is that. You plug in the coordinates y and x of the given point. And given slope M, and you solve for B. That's really easy. So, and you've done that. I think everybody has probably done that on their homework, although not everybody's submitting their homework when they're asked to. Most of you are. And when I see you do it in class, I've seen you do it. Okay, so there's nothing here that you haven't already shown me that you can do. Okay, so I say plug the slope M, the value of B into y equals mx plus b. And you have your equation. And then you might consider plotting a graph to check. Or you could plug your x and y back into this equation and make sure it gives you your solution. I think it's useful to plot a graph and check. For example, use the intercepts. Okay. Now, having said use the intercepts to plot the line, let's use the intercepts and plot a line. Different line. But how about this now? Let's say it's ax plus by equals c. And I really don't want to use a and b. So let me rewrite that. I don't want to use b when I write this because b is supposed to be the y-intercept. So I'm going to say cx plus dy equals g. E would be the logical next letter, but G is easier to identify on the board. Okay. So the word I just squeezed in there because I didn't think to write it at first. Plot the line by intercepts, which is what I kind of said down here. We want to make sure we understand that this is what we're doing. Now, as I think I've probably said about 100 times, you want to write this out. The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. Plug in y equals 0, solve for x. Whatever you get gives you the y-intercept. Find the y-intercept. Write this out. I'm going to circle that. Write at least this much out. Okay. When you have that, you have the x-intercept and you have the y-intercept. It equals literally too much like a minus sign. And you label the line with whatever your numbers are. Does that seem familiar? Yes, no, maybe a little shaky. Ask me to work out an example next time if you don't understand what this relates to. But before you ask me to work it out, go back and do a little review. See what open math has told you. See where open math has told you almost exactly the same thing. Okay? In other words, don't ask me to do something that you can pretty easily look up and review before next time. Okay? That gives me more time to talk about the things you can't quickly review. Okay? But by all means, email me before class next time and ask a good question about it. Okay. Like, still don't understand how to plot a line by intercepts. That would be okay. It would help if you prefaced it with, I've looked and I still can't find it, etc. Right? Okay. And then I can quickly work one out. But you can also find it in the quizzes that I've asked. So go back and review the quizzes recently, the last two weeks or so. You'll see where we've done it. Okay. Okay. Well, still find the equation of a line given point and slope. Equation of a line given 2 points. Method I'm going to give you. Now, they're equations you can memorize, okay? They're formulas you can memorize. Usually, when you memorize formulas, it's a short-term thing. You memorize it just before the test and forget it shortly after. If you go through these steps, it's likely that you're going to retain it longer and it's going to be there for you when you need it later on in a later course or later on in this course. Okay, well, given 2 points, it's really easy to find the equation. Find the slope. Now, recommended way to find the slope. I have done fundamental triangles in here, haven't I? Yes or no? Recognize fundamental triangles? Okay, probably didn't then. Okay. But anyhow, you find the slope. Slope is rise divided by run. You know what I mean by delta y? Yes or no? Or shake. Delta means change in. Change in y divided by the change in x. Okay. You should understand what I mean by y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. But it's helpful to understand that so that you're doing rise is delta y, it's y2 minus y1, so it'll be y2 minus y1 here. And divided by run, which is delta x, which is this. Sort that out in whatever way. But in any case, use the procedure for point and slope using either point. In other words, you come back to this, because once you found the slope, you've got 2 points. All you need is a point and a slope, and you can do this. Pick the point you'd rather use. It makes no difference. You're going to get the same result either way. Okay. So if you're given 2 points, do this. Make sure you know how to do that first. Now there's a formula you can use for this. I prefer you use the reasoning, but if you use the formula and get it right, you're still going to get credit. Okay. Again, I recommend both. I recommend you remember the formula, but I recommend you remember what everything means, because you carry meaning in your memory longer than you will a formula. And you want the meaning for future courses. Still, if I come out of this course with as a formula and you know how to use it on this midterm and on the final exam, I'll be perfectly happy. just not quite as perfectly happy as I would be if you knew all the procedures, because then I'd be more confident you're going to succeed later on. And that's what really counts. Okay. Okay, let me pause while I flip the boards around. Okay, well, we also want to be able to find the equation of a line parallel to a given line through a given point. So put the given line into the form y equals mx plus b. The slope of the requested line is going to be m because the line is parallel. And I would say use the slope in the given point to find the equation of the new line. It's a good idea to graph both lines, see if they're parallel. Now, synopsis of that is very simple. If you're given a line, you can find its slope. In whatever form you're given, you just solve for y. And everybody, I think, knows how to solve the equation of a given line for y if it isn't already in the form y equals mx plus b. Sometimes it'll be in this form. So when I say put it into this form, do this if necessary, because it might already be in that form and you can just read off the slope. Be sure it's in that form one way or the other. So now you know the slope and you just do the first thing I showed you when I started reviewing. which is what to do if you have the slope and a point. You're given a point and you're given a line. Okay. Find the equation of a line perpendicular to a given line, given a slope. Put the given line into the form y equals mx plus b. My word reciprocal is not quite written legibly. A little better. Slope of the requested line is a negative reciprocal of that slope. Then the same as here, use the slope in the given point to find the equation of the line. The whole thing is find the slope of whatever line you're given. If you're looking for the parallel line, it's going to have the same slope. If you're looking for the perpendicular line, it's going to have the negative reciprocal of that slope. And it's not a bad idea to graph and see if they appear to be perpendicular, but that's a little tricky because if they're only going to look perpendicular if you use the same scale on the y-axis as you use on the x-axis. So I'm not even going to really say that here because that's just a little bit tricky. But do be sure that you have the right slope and be sure it goes through the right point. You can always plug the point in and see if the slope matches. Or plug the slope in and see if, well, you can't really see if the point matches. Okay. Okay, does all that make sense in terms of what you've done in the last week or two? Make sure it does. Because a lot of times you only half learn it by doing the assignments. Despite your best efforts, sometimes it's hard to bring yourself to make the best effort because of time pressures. But now's the time to pull it all together. I've already mentioned that you can check things by plotting lines and so forth. Solve a system by graphing. I won't even say the system of linear equations, but I'm only going to ask you about linear equations at this point, okay? You can solve any system by graphing if you can graph the equations. You want to graph both equations on the same set of coordinate axes. Estimate the coordinates of the intersection point. Plug the x and y coordinates of the estimated point into each equation. And then see how close each equation is to an identity. That's the way you think about it. And it's going to look something like this. You may have an equation like this, and maybe one like this. Here's your intersection point. You want to find the x coordinate and the y coordinate. You want to find, well, that's it. You want to find the x coordinate and the y coordinate, plug them in. Ideally, both of your equations will give you an identity. When you simplify them, same number on each side. You're going to get numbers when you plug these in. In reality, unless it's a contrived problem where the numbers are integers, you're going to be off a little bit on your estimate. You're going to be off a little bit on your graph. You're doing a hand sketch graph, which is what I want you to do. Anything else is contrived. Okay, so hand sketch a graph as you've seen me do. Find the intersection point. Check it out. Okay, we'll continue with this next time. Let me know what things you're most wanting to review. We can even do a little bit of review next Monday, but we're going to, of course, be into some new material by then.